Hello and welcome to another edition of the Chamber right here on Citi TV. Of course, Parliament is still on recess. The House is not in session, so we are continuing with our series, catching up with former members of Parliament and how they're doing and the experiences and all of that. Today I have another interesting personality to speak to. I'll unveil my personality when we're back from this break. Stay with us. You're welcome back from the break. This is still the Chamber. My name is Mensah Opoku. I've been joined today by the former member of Parliament, immediate past member of Parliament, as most of them like to refer to. They've been out of Parliament for just about 4 or 5 months. Former member of Parliament for Tempane in the Upper East region, the Honorable Joseph Dindiok Kpemka. You're welcome.
Thank you, Duke.
Council.
Thank you. I wanted to take you on for getting one of my names wrong.
No, you see,
but you've corrected yourself, so you are forgiven.
I was trying to combine the Joseph and the Dindiok. But this is a very, the first time I heard it, I was wondering, it's a very exotic name. Dindiok.
Well, I recall
Dindiok
that
Kpemka.
some professors of mine in Legon ever said it was sounding Portuguese or something. But
what's the meaning of Dindiok Kpemka?
It's a Bimoba name.
Okay.
You see, Dindiok, as for example, like I would liken it to the Akan name as Ababio.
Okay.
Like some ancestor has returned.
That's what Dindiok means.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And Kpemka is just where you have a number of people come into the family and then returning prematurely, and then you come and stay. Then they say, "Oh, there's no elder apart from you. You are the one." Who is the elder of the family after all have gone and left you alive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's begin with how life started. You're from Tempane, right? Or
Yes,
born
please.
there.
Tempane constituency.
Yeah, and then you grew up there. How was life like growing up?
Thank you very much, Duke, for yet this opportunity by your esteemed media house for me to ventilate some of these. Duke, I must honestly tell you that it's been a very humbling experience. And with all respect and humility, it's not been a very rosy one. I must concede before I actually commence, because some 47 years back, by the blessing of the Almighty, my mother brought me onto this earth, and I was born in a little village called Kwekra, located about 6 kilometers east of Tempane, which is our capital. In 1973.
Okay.
And Duke, I was not privileged to have educated family members to encourage me and all that. And I recall that those days, education was not a priority in my community at all. Because you started primary school sometimes as 50 or 60 and you ended up in primary 6 as 5 or 6 students. I recall that our batch, when we were in P6, were just about 3 or 4. Or we started as 64 of us in primary 1.
Wow.
Because at that time, to be honest with you, people did not understand the importance of education, and farming was the order of the day. And in fact, if you were very committed to going to school, they called you a lazy young man. And it's only lazy people who went to school and all that. Very, very funny, But that was the environment I grew from.
But were your parents farmers?
Yeah, both of them. Both my father and my mother were farmers. They had never been to primary school. They had never had any formal education, ever. And so I started school around 1979, 1980, in my village primary school called Kwekra Primary School.
Okay.
And just when I finished the primary school and I was about to step into middle school, they introduced middle school for the first time in my community, and then sitting in some thatch roofs and under trees to study and all that. From there, in 1989, I wrote late entrance exam as part of the last batch of the old system of education. O-level. And I gained admission to Boku Senior High School, then known as Boku Secondary School, Azoka, those days, in 1989, up until 1994. When I got my O-level successfully. And I enrolled for my A-level at Ghana Secondary School in Tamale.
So you're Ghana's?
Yes.
Okay.
My roots in Bosco continuation in Ghana School. So I then did my A-level there, and thereafter did my national service back in my former school, Boku Senior High. As a teacher. As a teacher, I taught English and literature in English in Boku Senior High for 2 years before we started the Tempane Senior High School in 1998. Okay. I was one of the pioneer teachers. I had to move from Bokusek there with my A-level to contribute my quota. At that time, I remember we were teaching gratis, for free, because we were the first batch of teachers. We hadn't been recruited into the formal sector and all that. So we started the Tempane Senior High School in 1998. And I was again teaching 3 subjects: English language, I was teaching government, and then along the line history as well. Okay. So afterwards, I left in 1999 to Lagos. Okay. And I pursued English and philosophy as combined, and then I majored in English. In 2002, which when we graduated. Then, Duke, knowing my background and the humble beginnings and all that, I had to travel back to the north after the first degree. So I was in Bolga for my national service, Bolga Girls Senior High, and doing my part-time at Notre Dame Seminary in Navrongo.
As a teacher?
Yes, please.
Teaching English?
English and then literature in English.
Okay.
And then that lasted from 2002 to 2005 when I gained admission to the Faculty of Law, University of Ghana, after having gone through the entrance exam and etc. So I reported to school in about August 2005, and I pursued the law program. 2 years, I graduated in Lagos in 2007, the post-first degree, LLB. And then, by the grace of God and His mercies, I gained admission that very year to the law school. And within exactly 2 years, again, I was called to the bar in 2009.
So you were called to the bar 11 years ago?
Yes, this is the 12th year.
12 year.
Yes, please. I'll be 12 years in October at the bar.
But throughout, from primary school up until now that you've been called to the bar, are there any leadership positions you held which you would say prepared you for the...
Well, first, I recall that when I was in primary school, I was a senior prefect. And then the same with middle school. And when I went to Bokusek, remember, apart from the Form 5s, that's O level, there were also A-level persons. We had the 6th formers and the Form 5s. So mostly the school will make the 6th formers prefects, yes. And then the Form 5s will deputize where they don't have enough 6th formers. So I was the assistant library prefect in Bokusek. And after that, I went to Ghana School. I was in Nkrumah House prefect during my A-level. And national service after A-level, I was the Boku District Vice President of NASPA, National Service Personnel Association, which I later on, after my degree, I became the Upper East President of National Service Personnel. So you realize that after my A-level, I was a member of the leadership of NASPA. After my degree, I was a member of the leadership of NASPA as well.
What about at the university?
I was the assistant SRC secretary in Lagos.
Oh,
yes.
Was there a position like that?
Yes.
SRC
Yes. What happens is that the SRC president is elected. Then the General Assembly is properly constituted and they elect one person as the assistant secretary.
Okay.
So I was elected as the assistant SRC secretary for Lagos in our year.
Who was the president?
I served, I recall, we're calling him Ampoma Boateng Benjamin, calling him Stylish. That was his name. And then one Frank Achampong, now a judge, was the secretary, and I was his assistant. I very well recall.
Who were some of your contemporaries at Lagos?
At the time, Kisia Jaben.
We'll come to Kisia Jaben.
Godfrey Buadami. And then many more others who were mates. And then immediately behind us, those days, in the first degree, Nana Tiwia, Clement Kojo Akapami, Shamima Muslim,
In Parliament.
You had my good friend Bernard Avle and some others. They were 1 year behind us in Legon those days. So those were my contemporaries.
But how did you get into NPP politics? You had taught me, of course, I'm sure they were calling you Teacher Kpemka or Teacher Joseph or Mr. Joseph or something. You had taught, you had come back to law school, you had qualified, you decided to practice in Bolga from our research.
Yeah.
And then you decided at what time, especially in a region which
I started politics in
1992. Hey, right at the formation of...
At the age of 19 years.
Wow.
1992. My father was a die-hard NPP member. Die-hard. Died in Tempane. And so anytime he was going for any meeting, he held my hand. And we walked to the meeting. Every time. And anytime NPP leadership across the country traveled to our constituency, I was always there with my father in 1992 to meet them and all that. And in our village, Duke, this is a very interesting one. NPP in 1992, in my village, which is Kwekra, when they did the voting, NPP got 11 votes. It was that time. It was PNC and NDC.
Okay.
There was nothing in my village like NPP. It was only my father, his two wives, his younger brother, and the two wives, and then those of us who were up to the voting age. That's all. Just those two houses.
The ones voted for
just 11 of us. And then in 1996, that increased to 24 because of increase in population. And my father also convinced one other old man who is now late to join us. And so we had 24 in 1996. And then in 2000, first round, we had 41 votes.
Still.
41. And in the second round, we talked to the PNC and they came on board. And we won narrowly.
Wow.
And I tell you, from then, my village, no party has ever gotten anything. We've been winning it since 2000.
Now, what motivated your father to join the NPP? In those days when NPP was seen as a highly elitist party, a farmer, a party for lawyers, and the high and mighty in the society. For a farmer to be the only member of NPP in your village.
Yeah,
what was his motivation?
He was already a member of the UP tradition.
Okay.
Those days, he was part of those who were harassed and arrested and detained and all that.
Dombo people.
Yes, he was part of those people. He was a very close friend of the late, famous, popular Adam Amandi.
Oh, okay.
Of blessed memory in Boku. And then the late Moro Salifu.
Okay.
Another very good friend of His Excellency, former President Kufuor and the party. He was a very good friend of these two personalities and lived with them over a long period. And they were his motivation. I remember that my father died just 2 years ago at the age of about 93 years.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, you remember. So those were his contemporaries. And so they influenced him a lot from right after independence through to the Progress Party. They were the staunch supporters. So when we returned to civilian democracy, his contemporaries I mentioned came to him and said, look, our party is back. So he took it up. And at that time, to be honest with you, it was weird to be a member of NPP in that part of the country. And sometimes they will see you as, excuse me to say, they will say you are not normal. Because how come everybody is with a particular, and then you alone, you are going the way you are going. So that was how it started. But believe you me, Duke, in 2016, the same village that I told you the story about, NPP, myself, I had 500 plus votes, and NDC had 50.
Wow.
The same village. The same village. And in 2020, we split the polling station into two.
Okay.
And when you do an addition of the votes I got in the two, I had about 800 this time. And NDC had 100 and plus. So I had 800 this time round. And in the same way, His Excellency Nanado won massively there. So it's something that some people cannot fathom, that Northern Ghana, Upper East, then you have NPP winning in a polling station by such an overwhelming numbers and all that. But it tells you that with commitment and education, the people, when they see true development, they'll buy into the idea and support the cause of the party.
So where did they start? The journey to get into parliament. Of course, 19 years. It's a tradition in the family. You are a young practicing lawyer. I'm told one of the best in the region. You were winning almost all the cases. You were a darling boy there. And then you decided to run for parliament. What was the...
Before I ran for parliament, let me take us back a little. You know, I had passion for serving the people.
Okay.
So when I did the Tempane Senior High issue and Bokusek, the teaching, I went back in 2006 while in the law faculty. I contested law school, contested for a member of the district assembly in my electoral
Assemblyman.
area. Yes, and I won.
Okay, so you were assemblyman.
Yes, I won twice. In fact, the first time I won, while still a student, I contested for presiding member and won.
Hey.
I was the youngest, where 3 and 1 dropped. Then I contested a very senior person, and then I won at just the first voting.
Which
as presiding member. And I mean, I must commend the assemblymen at that time. I didn't give anybody a CD because I didn't have it anyway. And they voted massively for me. I became presiding member. Exactly 2 years after becoming presiding member, I was nominated by His Excellency the President at the time, John Ajekum Kufuor, as District Chief Executive of the then Garu Tempane District.
This was which year?
That is 2008. The last stage of 2008. I was just in office for 6 months. You know, I was nominated as District Chief Executive. Again, when I went for approval in the Assembly, only one person did not vote for me. I think there were 21 voted for me, and one voted against me. I have tried since then. I've tried since then to know the person, and I've not been able to know. So I served my people again. You know, after serving as presiding member, the same assembly members said, look, you have served us very well as our leader. So they confirmed me as DCE. I worked with them. And after that, when I became a lawyer, I decided again to go back to Upper East. You know, I have never started anything here in Accra. I went back there as a practitioner and a lecturer.
Okay.
I was recruited by the Bolga Polytechnic as a lecturer, specifically for the law courses and the English courses in that institution, to which I'm very grateful. So I was in that institution teaching and also practicing. And in 2010, I gave a shot to the contest for position of regional secretary of the New Patriotic Party against, that time, a senior lawyer and then 2 senior teachers. One of them now also a lawyer. And then I emerged victorious. I was elected as the regional secretary in 2010. And right after that, I served my party very well, worked very closely with the then presidential candidate and then the party. And I became so close to the then presidential candidate that in 2012, when I lost my mother, and they were doing the final funeral, I did not invite anybody come from Accra. But I say this time and again, Your Excellency, I continue to thank you for the role you have played in my life. On the eve of the funeral, I got a call from an unknown number, and when I picked, he introduced himself as the NPP presidential candidate at the time, and told me he was coming to the funeral the following day. I was shocked, and I turned and told my late wife that, look, this is what I've just heard. She said, no, it's a scam. I shouldn't let anybody hear because we may be disgraced if we say, and that was his voice. And other people received the phone and also spoke with me. So the following morning, he was at my village. I was very privileged and honored to have him attend my mother's funeral as candidate. That is why I keep saying that I'm so blessed, because he then attended my father's funeral as president. You know, he attended my father's funeral as president. And again, on both occasions, not that he was on a duty tour to the region and attended. He came all the way from Accra. I remember my father's case 2 years ago. He was out of the country for a meeting in Niger, an extraordinary meeting. And then from Niger, when we were watching him on telly, he surprisingly landed in Tamale that evening and then came to my village.
I see.
So when I became regional secretary, I worked for the party. And as I said, it was so much appreciated by national executive, by the presidential candidate himself, and all that. and I continued to practice and to work for the party. But I resigned in 2012 to take a shot at the parliamentary. Then I went for the primaries, and I lost it to the former Deputy Minister for Defense, the Honorable Joe Akutubila.
Yeah.
I lost it to him in the primaries. We were three, myself, Honorable Joe Akutubila, and then the current DC Chief Executive. Okay. Then I came second. I was beaten by about 28 votes. Okay. And then I supported him. Unfortunately, we could not win. Then in 2016, when I picked the form, I was privileged that no member of my party picked the form to contest me.
Didn't contest you?
Nobody contested me. I went unopposed, and the rest is history. I won that election in 2016 for the New Patriotic Party for the first time in history. And if you go and look at the history of that constituency, you realize that the votes that the party had gotten over the years had been nothing to write home about. So we moved it from the initial paltry 5,000 and that kind of thing to about 8,000 in 2012 and to about 10,000 plus in 2016 and to 14,000 in the last election. Okay. Wow. So what it tells you is that consistently there's a growth in that constituency. And we are hoping and praying that it will tend to become an NPP stronghold one day.
All right. So we'll take a break here. Of course, the conversation is getting interesting, but of course we have bills to pay. So we'll take a break here. When I come back, we'll dive deeper into his parliamentary career and other trending issues. Stay with us. Hello and welcome back. This is the Chamber. I'm still having a conversation with the Honorable Joseph Dindiok Kpemka, Esquire, Council, lawyer, whatever you choose to call him, and former Member of Parliament for Tempane. I used to hold one of the key seats for the NPP in the Upper East region. We've had a conversation about his upbringing and his political career and the rest. And now we're in Parliament. You won the seat to come to Parliament. And how was the contest like?
It was very hot. Duke, when I think about 2016, I think about an unthinkable event in my life. Because I worked hard over the period. In fact, I started working on it seriously. Even though previously I'd served my people in different capacities, I started working towards my parliamentary ambitions more than 3 years to the elections. And so when I was made candidate, I was already rooted so well in the constituency. And I was anchored seriously by my late wife. We worked together very seriously with the constituency executive at that time, led by the current DCE at that time. And we collaborated very closely. In fact, we touched the nooks and crannies of that constituency, touched many hearts, and we kept working as if the election was coming the following day for a year or more. And I recall that I was so exhausted that I decided to travel with my wife to Nigeria for rest and prayer in September. Unfortunately, when I got to Accra, she was bogged down by a very heavy stroke, and she died in my presence the following morning. Oh. Yeah, in September 2016. Wow. Yeah, that was what I suffered. The calamitous situation I found myself in, and I nearly, as I keep saying, I nearly gave up. That I would no longer contest because of the situation I found myself in. Because I was having very young kids, one of them as young as 4 years at the time. Wow. So I remembered one of the messages I had in church, the biblical messages I had in church about Job and the calamities he went through and the later blessings, the trials and temptations and all that. So I put it behind. And then I grabbed the opportunity, went back and used the Bible and the Quran, how it has reflected in this particular life, and told the people to give me an opportunity to serve them. And I'm so grateful. The constituency executives, the chiefs, the pastors, the malams, all the big people, the opinion leaders, I think people threw party away. And in that contest, they were looking at my capabilities, my competencies, what I could do for the people of Tempane. And so I'm very grateful to them.
Who did you contest?
I contested the late David Adakudugu of the National Democratic Congress. And
Was
also there was an
sitting
independent
MP.
candidate, a very strong independent candidate, Dr. Francis Asana, who is also late. And then one candidate from the PPP and one from the CPP.
Okay.
And we're 5. Then,
so you took out an incumbent?
Yes, I took out an incumbent. And then I won that seat, as I indicated, for the first time ever in the history of the party.
Yeah.
That was the very first time we won that seat.
And then you were nominated as Deputy Attorney General.
Yes.
So with added responsibilities.
Yes. Again, let me reflect over my godfather in politics, His Excellency the President of the Republic. When he was on a tour to thank the people, right after election, before being sworn in, I was not on oath, so I can say it. He got to Bulgaria, and there were a lot of people struggling to see him. He cited me and said, "Come over." And I went to him, he touched me and congratulated me. And said, "I intend to nominate you for a deputy ministerial position, so go and prepare."
Hey, I see.
Right
so
there.
You were ready.
Right there.
We were ready and waiting. Some people were lobbying the rest.
Later on, I saw that the media, they were mentioning names of persons who were going to be deputy attorney general. My name was never ever mentioned.
Nobody mentioned your
Not
name.
once. It was all over.
Yeah.
Then I kept my cool and my calm. I said,
you knew who had
the
promised
man who is going to do the appointment has said he will give it to me. So, when the names were released, people were like, where from this name? Godfrey Yebu Adami all over in Accra at the time. But where from this other person? But you see, there's something I see in His Excellency the President. He looks out for quality and merit. And if you do deserve it, it doesn't matter where you come from. He'll give it to you. Okay. Because I can tell you, there were others who were not in support of my appointment or nomination to that particular position. That's a fact. But he stood his guns and said, "This is the person I want to go with Dami to assist the Honorable Gloria Ekufu."
Okay.
And I was nominated.
Let's reflect on your life in Parliament. First, as an MP on the floor of the House, how would you assess your performance over the 4 years?
Duke, I would have wished that you should do that. But if you ask
your
me
high points,
I will just highlight
on the floor of the House.
A few things. If you go back, the records are clear that one of the most important pieces of legislation, has been the Office of Special Prosecutor.
Of course, yeah.
I led it from the beginning to the end.
That's true.
I was privileged. My boss asked me to lead it. I went out of the country. I was in the US and other places. I studied their systems to come and replicate it in Ghana. In Parliament, on the floor, I led it from the very day that it began to the last day. I still even recall that the last day, people were asking why my boss was not around to move the last motion, the third reading. And, both sides were unanimous that, look, my boss had asked me to lead the process all this while. It was my baby. Why were they now asking for my boss to be there? Both sides. And Mr. Speaker really agreed with them. And I was privileged. I was privileged to go through that process. And remember also that at that young age and being a first-timer, I was vice chairman of the Constitutional Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament. Yes, I was vice chairman to my senior Ben Abdallah, before I was nominated. And automatically because I was nominated to that ministry and because of our relationship with that, I had to relinquish that. So I'm also grateful to the leadership of the House that at that young age of being a member of Parliament, they made me a first timer. There were so many other senior persons. They made me vice chairman of that very important committee. I'm very grateful for that. And again, you realize that there are certain very important, I contributed quite a lot, but there are certain very important contributions I also made apart from that. Most of the bills, if you look at the right to information, I was a pivotal part of it. It has now become a reality, and many others. the state, the Governance Act,
yeah.
and etc. There are quite a number of very important.
It's like you were the liaison for the ministry in Parliament.
That was
almost
what
everything which related to that.
That was why I was almost always in Parliament. You know, because I was like a link. My boss made me a link between the ministry and Parliament. So I was at the forefront of.
That's why some people are worried that the two new deputies that have been appointed to occupy the former office that you were in, none of them is a parliamentarian. Alfred Tuanyabua, your friend from the bar, is not. Dinah Snowabadapa is not an MP. Is that in any way going to affect? But of course, your good old friend Dami is now at the top of the triumvirate, if I may put it that way.
Well, you see, it is the discretion is His Excellency's to exercise, and as I always say, he's the coach. He knows who should be placed where at what time to achieve maximum results. Is that not going to affect the
smooth running of such a key department of state like the Attorney General's part?
I don't have a deputy. I don't think.
You don't have an MP at least as a deputy.
I don't think it will, because the only limitation is that you will not have the right to vote. But when there's a process going on, you can always sit in, as you know. But the only limitation is the right to vote. So I think that one person will be assigned specifically to handle that, to play that role I was playing.
But he will not have an office in Parliament.
He will not have an office in Parliament.
You are an MP.
Exactly.
Even if there's any thing, I'll do your office down there at that basement. Your office at the basement.
You are reminding me nostalgic moments.
Quickly, you will just come up and then come and if there's some fire to be quenched on the
floor. You're talking about the highlights. If you go and then go through the hands, you realize that I made very significant contributions also to the budget statement.
Yes,
and one of the other very significant contributions I made and had accolades from very senior members who gave me a pat on the back was when we were debating the Sino-Hydro deal. When my good friend and brother, younger brother, John Dinapo, was on his feet, making a very strong point. I rose up on a point of order, and I took him through certain constitutional provisions, which he read part and gave a constitutional application of it and how the law says you should do. And at the end, it was unanimously approved. And I think Mr. Speaker commended me for that contribution.
And I think your views were also quite strong on legal education and its reforms.
Absolutely. If you recall, it was, I was also a member of the General Legal Council. And so my views on legal education, I never ever shelved it. I made it very clear and categorical. And so I would say that I really, I don't score myself marks in Parliament. It is for the public to judge. But as far as my service in there was concerned, and I want to thank one of my good brothers and friends, and then first my leader, who once in a while will call me, pat me on the back and say, look, you have a lot of potential. We will help you to nurture it. And I thank him so much. Then you had people like my brother, Inusa Fuseni, who will call me and say, first time your performance is great. I encourage you, work hard. The minority leader as well will do that. And then the venerable Katie Hammond, you call me out. Joe, come. That was a great one. I thank all those seniors. And Bruce Derry, then you had my brother Nitiwo. All of them, they were always encouraging me that I should work harder and that the sky was the limit. So I really enjoyed every moment.
You were at a ministry that also had jurisdiction over the prosecution of certain cases. Was one controversial one was Men's Gold. You seem to be the only person who was speaking on that issue. What are some of your life as a deputy attorney general?
Duke, you guys are doing a fantastic job. The media, I have to commend you. But sometimes there's something I find as a problem, and I have to draw your attention.
Which is what?
When we err, you highlight. When we succeed, you shelve it.
Have you succeeded with Men's Gold?
Let me give you an example. I want to tell you something very briefly in just a minute. When I went to Dubai, under the instructions of His Excellency the President, with my colleagues, I returned and briefed the media that by the records I saw in Dubai, Namwan will walk free. Because if what I saw was anything to go by, there was no offense committed. I said it publicly. I recall that someone even did a tape on it and tried to take me on for coming to that determination. Then, what happened? He was acquitted and discharged. There was an appeal. He was still, acquitted. There was a further appeal to the Supreme Court. It was affirmed.
But fast forward, it's one of the issues that has become an albatross around the neck of this government. Men's Gold. People are still, as of today, people are still calling for government to do something about it.
But the gentleman has been arraigned before court. And the court is not a kangaroo one. We only go through the legal processes, however slow. You know, justice delayed is justice denied. But justice rushed is justice buried. So we don't have to rush it. I know that the Attorney General's department will do due diligence and do the necessary prosecution. And if he's found guilty in the end, the law will take its course. But we should just be patient. We are no longer running a system where they take you into a certain room and after 3 rounds of hearing, maybe just in 4 hours, they pronounce you guilty and sentence you to 50 years. That system is gone. We are running within a constitutional injunction, you know, where every accused person is presumed innocent until proven guilty or has pleaded guilty. That is the constitutional injunction we have to live with. And in living with that, we have to make room for all those other errors. Expedition is important. But let's also remember that when you are dealing with things about the lives of people, you ought to be cautious. Because as has happened in history before, you can err and execute someone and later find that he was not guilty after all. What do? You cannot reverse life. So everything you do in the court system, you have to balance it against the backdrop of rights of individuals and the constitutional injunctions and dictates that we need to apply to acquit ourselves creditably as we march towards consolidating our democratic gains. That's very important because Men's Gold, there are people who are aggrieved. They have still not gotten their... Yeah, that's a fact.
If you do a fine and careful analysis of the areas where there were a lot of people involved in Men's Gold, the NPP almost lost all those places.
I agree.
Men's Gold and Galamsey.
But this didn't occur during NPP. The Men's Gold saga did not occur during NPP. It started in the previous government.
NPP. I mean, it collapsed like a pack of cards.
But you see,
the NPP.
there's even this thing I have to draw attention to. When they started, people benefit.
Yeah.
And they make all sorts of claims. And they are excited. When it boomerangs, government is held blamable. That is where I have the difficulty. There were other schemes like that in Bolga. DKM, God is Love, and others. There were about 3 or 4.
Oh, it was also in Bolga.
Yes.
In Sunyani and
Oh, yes, in Bolga.
DKM came.
Oh, yes, DKM was in Bolga. Wow. Massively. In fact, people threw in hundreds of thousands of Ghana cedis and got nothing back. Okay. You know, so all these things,
if it could have been done in a better way, the way government handled this Men's Gold issue.
You see,
especially you were on the brief Men's Gold.
I think
some of your colleagues invested their monies for primaries and the rest.
Government did its bit. But the truth of the matter is that the endeavor itself was an unsustainable endeavor. And people ought to have read through. You know. So if something is too good to be true, you have to caution yourself. Otherwise, what you're likely to run into will be all your life savings will go into the drain. And then you turn around and blame government and regulators. You know, that's very unfortunate. We sympathize with them. But as time goes on, I know events will heal wounds.
Okay, let's come back to you. Spoke gleefully about the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Let's look at how things turn out. Mati Amidu, the very first occupant of the office, decided to resign from the office. He after, first of all, what do you make of the, you were very instrumental in the crafting, promulgation of the law and the rest, and how its first occupant dealt with the issues in the office?
Well, remember that His Excellency the President...
Coming on the back of a Japan.
Yeah. His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana appointed the Venerable Martin Alamisi Benz Kaiser as the Special Prosecutor. Yeah. Because this was a person, not a member of the New Patriotic Party, and a known member of the National Democratic Congress. So there was a signal the President was sending out that the man who is coming is not a member of my party. So he's going to do his work independently as required by Act 959. And so he was appointed, he was approved by Parliament, he started his work, and of course, he brought certain complaints to the fore. Like he talked about the accommodation, staff, and etc. And most of the staff who were with him were on secondment. So the very first budget that was allocated to, if you remember, was about 180 million Ghana cedis for him to be able to function in his office. And later on, he complained about the fact that he didn't have the tender entity committee and all that will be able to help him to. These are all things that are problems of new things that he needed to put in place for the office, office to function effectively. Unfortunately, some of those challenges festered for some time, and he, I would say that, as he himself indicated, he had commended the president earlier so much for that honor done him, and for the concern His Excellency the President himself was showing to that office, the commitment and the zeal, the support he was getting from the office of the Chief of Staff and the President. He had said it publicly. There was no disputation about that. Then came the controversial Ejapa, where, you see, I think that all of us, as legal persons and commentators, will have to look at what he said against the backdrop of the contents of the Ejapa agreement or deal. We have to look at it from that and objectively analyze it and ask ourselves some fundamental questions. What was the purpose of the Office of the Special Prosecutor?
Okay.
Was it to investigate corruption and corruption-related offenses and prosecute some? The same. If that was the mandate, then the Venerable Amidu didn't tell us what steps he had taken to do those investigations.
But he had done a corruption risk assessment.
But what part of his mandate gives him that one?
It's a corruption preventive mandate to prevent in anticipation of preventing corruption. He quoted portions of the act.
Assuming I even agree. I even agree with that.
So for you even disagree with
I said,
the base on which he conducted.
Hold on. I said assuming I agree. I'm not saying it's wrong or right. But assuming I agree, and then we proceed from there. What happens? Now he says that there was executive interference. But you have to find out what that itself means. What is the meaning of executive interference? When we are running an executive government, what's the meaning of executive interference?
It's an independent office.
Thank you. There is no strict application of the principle of independence anywhere on earth, because then it will lead to a situation where we create a monster.
Okay.
Independence also means checks and balances. Otherwise, unbridled and unchecked independence could lead to corruption of the moral fiber as well.
But if he's doing his work and you're not allowing him to do the work, you're not allowing him to carry out,
he
comes to certain conclusions.
Has he stated in any report?
Did
he state in any report that he wanted to carry out some things and somebody stopped him from doing it?
He said it in his the letters before he resigned.
I did not see that.
The way and manner he wanted to go about it, the president told him to shelve it.
I did not see that.
And he disagreed with
that.
I
didn't see that at all. I didn't see a portion where he said president said he should shelve it. I didn't see anything like that. He
wanted to go about the investigation. The president said he should wait. He shouldn't announce it. Wait and let Kenofoyaka.
So assuming he had insisted and gone ahead, what would happen?
He thought that would have been.
If you are independent and somebody, assuming that somebody says don't do A or B, and you defy the person and go ahead, wouldn't you be a hero?
But he was also thinking about it in the general scheme of things.
What is that scheme? You see, Duke, you see, what I'm seeking to say is that the truth of the matter is that as a nation, as we develop and evolve, we will meet some of these problems. But it is these things that will let us learn and move on and strengthen our institutions.
So for you, this was much ado about nothing.
You see, for me, what I would say is that he had his right to exercise. Yeah. The president had his right to exercise. And Ghanaians had their right to pass judgment based on whatever was before them.
Okay. Now a successor has been nominated. The president is here to transmit the name to Parliament. Kisia Jabin, your good old friend. Today we saw.
I hope he watches this program.
We've also seen a letter written by the good old Martin Amidu, referring his views on Kisia Jabia as well. What do you make of his nomination?
You see, Duke, as I sit before you, I want us to reflect over something. There are no angels on earth.
Of course.
There are no angels on earth. It is the struggle to perfect things that will bring out a little angelic nature in you.
Yeah.
But nobody should think that there are angels here on earth and in Ghana. And there are no angels anywhere in the world. But you see, the will and commitment to achieve results in a certain direction is the reason why a particular person or the other will be put in a position. Okay. The will, the zeal, the enthusiasm to succeed, and the person's history is also very important. When you are appointing people into positions, their history is very important. What is history? Do they have any requisite professional qualification or experience in the area in which you have sent them? And I heard one of the most ridiculous arguments, that he's too young.
Yeah,
it is for me the most ridiculous argument. You know why? No. The constitution that we have says at 40 you qualify to be, so you can be president to manage Ghana at 40, but you cannot manage special prosecutor's office, a little subset of the country. You cannot manage that as a 42-year-old.
But there are nuances. It says he will retire at 50, and he'll be thinking about what will happen after his retirement. So the force
he's not retiring. He is leaving that office.
Yes, at 50.
It's the same as president.
It's
the same as president. If you are 40 years and you become president,
at 48
you leave. I mean, so that argument for me flies in the face of reality. What we should be looking at is, does he possess the requisite academic, professional, and experience that will let him succeed in that office?
The wherewithal and the political clout, does he have it?
I think
From what you know,
he has it. I know him. You know, as I told you, in the first degree, we're on the same floor.
In the Kwafu.
And I remember him for one thing in the university. Early morning, when you come out to go to lectures, he has some wawa board. And then he writes wise sayings and very philosophical things. Every morning, motivational messages.
He was a philosopher at the Kwafu.
Every morning, Kisi Ajaben will write that. And when you come out, you read it before you even go for lectures. And
the floor notice board.
Yes, and then you put it right there. Then everybody was interested, and you always read it. And I was really motivated by that. He was doing so well, and he achieved excellent results in Legon. Became a lawyer, went abroad and did his masters, and came back, became a lecturer, and he's specialized in criminal law. He's done a lot of high-profile criminal cases before the superior courts of judicature. Why? You want to deny such a person because he's not 60 years?
Okay.
What was the other argument the other time?
Martin
was too old. So where are we going with these arguments? Today, someone is too old. The following day, another person is too young. What is the measure?
There's also the argument of his association with Africa Legal and Associates, White and Case, those firms that worked on the Japadi.
Go and look at his firm. Whether he's a staff of those.
Cromwell and Gray.
That's why that particular entity that he manages. Do they have any association with those other ones you are mentioning?
I'm told they've done something before.
You see, sometimes all people do is that, as I'm here in my private office now, someone can bring me something to review for a fee. And I do my professional advice on it and send it back to you. It doesn't tell me that if there's a problem coming out from that, then I'm involved. No.
Now if you have done your professional work,
you have done your professional work,
you'll be able to.
And then when you do your professional work, and your legal fees and everything have been taken care of, that's the extent to which you can go.
Very well.
But you see, to be honest with you, as a system, it appears to me that we moved from the culture of silence to the culture of excessive noise.
Wow.
Because some of the things, the time we spent talking about them could have been productively used to discuss other things.
Okay. On that note of excessive silence, we'll take a break here. When I come back, we'll have our final moments with the Honorable Joseph Dindiok Kpemka. Stay with us. You're welcome back from the break. This is still the chamber, of course. We're getting the final moments to our conversation with the Honorable Joseph Dindiok Kpemka. The Honorable, so I remember we conducted, we did our work in your constituency. We came back with a report which didn't look very good and said we were going to lose the election. You fiercely disagreed with us, organized a press conference in Parliament to disagree with us. And at the end of the day, during the election, some of the things we highlighted played out. And you're on record to have said that your people chose to believe propaganda and lies over the work that you did. What work did you do in Tempane, in the Tempane constituency? So much so that you felt that you shouldn't have lost the election.
Well, first, let me make a point of correction. Your team did not come to the conclusion that I was going to lose. In fact, your team gave an overall picture of the development projects.
Yes.
The construction of drains and the graveling of the roads and etc. The team looked at all that. But you see, I keep on saying one thing, that you can hide the truth for 100 years, but one day it will come. Tempane constituency, in terms of number of projects, roads, electricity, mass lock assistance to persons for business, there is no constituency in the Upper East region that had better opportunities than Tempane. No constituency.
I see.
Employment, no constituency had better opportunities than Tempane. I am making these categorical statements on a national platform.
So you still stand by
Go and see the number of votes.
Propaganda and lies.
Do you know what happened? Duke, I beg you, one day go there and then check. A few days before election, the young men who went to do Galamsey, they came home and said, nobody should vote for me because they said they shouldn't do Galamsey. And it's because of my serving my government. They came in their numbers. A few days to elections, some of the people in the diaspora came with transferred anger. Things that may have happened to them outside the constituency. They came to tell the people. And Maslock, for the first time in history, we got loans for over 3,000 women. For the first time in history. You know the message of the NDC to those women? When NPP wins, they will force you to pay. When NDC wins, it's for free.
Hey.
And the majority of these women
believed it.
They believed it. They collected the help from us and voted against us because of the message the other side gave. That was the message. And it wasn't only in my constituency. In the majority of areas, they will go and tell the people that, look, if you NPP wins, they will arrest you people, they will force you to pay. If we win, you won't pay anything.
So that's how come NPP won only one seat in Upper East.
It's one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons. It's not just the only reason, but it is one of the reasons. I've spoken about the Galamsey issue. Transferred anger. People, they don't do Galamsey in our area, but right from the south and all that. Go and cross-check the number of boreholes that I drilled in 4 years. Just cross-check for yourself. Small town water systems. Go and cross-check. Go to Tempane Senior High School today. It looks like a university.
But the Tempane Hospital still...
Tempane Hospital was initiated, Garu Tempane Hospital that time was initiated by the previous government, and they kept giving analysis of how far they had gone and all that. I want to tell you today that there is not one block that was laid at that place.
Okay, very well. Are you making a comeback for the seat?
I'll come to that in 1 minute. But just to wind up, as I speak now, I have a polyclinic completed. We are about to commission it.
I see.
In Tempane. Our health insurance new office has been fully constructed, ready for commissioning. We have a district assembly complex which has been roofed, will soon be completed. This one district, one warehouse, we have. The one district, one village, one dam, we have.
On the basis of this, are you going to make a comeback? Are you going to contest again?
I will not be able to give you a definite answer.
Again,
I normally look at the ground if the ground, the people I have served for 4 years, cry that I should come back, why not? But if they say that I should not come back, they want somebody else, why should I impose myself on them? So I want to watch and listen to them. And if they pass a verdict that we regret that you are out, come back, why not? But if they say, no, the one we have elected has performed or want somebody else, it is for them to decide. I don't want to impose myself on them. I want them to be the ones who will decide whether I should again contest or not.
Is your successor, how would you assess her?
Well, she's just been in office for 4 months, so 4 months and all that. I've always said that at the end of her tenure of office, we'll do a comparison of the records and the people.
We are told you rejected a deputy ministerial position to be deputy, to be regional minister for the Upper East region.
Well, I have not been been contacted on that. I've not been contacted on that. But you know the president stated categorically that anybody who lost and was a minister will not be appointed. So, but I will say that, look, you don't appoint yourself. And nobody does that. But I can tell you for sure that His Excellency the President, as I know, if he wants me to perform a certain role in the government, he will definitely not overlook me. He will put me there appropriately. I have no doubt in my mind.
Okay. On that note, from the chambers, of course, the chambers, the legal, the private law offices, the chambers of Joseph Dindiok Kpemka, immediate past MP for Tempane. This is the chamber. This has been the chamber. My name is Mensah Opoku. Keep watching Citi TV for the very best in program. We'll be back same time next week on the same channel.